Hey guys, welcome back to the video. I just got to watch A24's newest movie, Pearl, and here are all of my spoiler-free thoughts. In this prequel to the early 2022 horror A24 film X, Pearl follows the old woman from X, Pearl, as we see her when she was younger, trying to make it as a star. As established in X, we know that Pearl is jealous of young women that can do whatever they want with their bodies and profession, because at their age, she had the same dreams. Before we get into all of my spoiler-free thoughts on X, if you've seen or want to check out X, let me know what you think of it in the comments down below, and also hit the subscribe and notification on pseudo-based and tell me the video or I go live, both always take more time. Let's get into it. So going into this movie, I didn't even watch the teaser that came out after X, like the post-credit scene. I didn't even know that was a thing for the longest time. I didn't even know a sequel was being made. But when I first heard about this sequel, technically prequel, I was still very intrigued and I was very excited for it. I tried to stay away from almost every single trailer. I ended up watching one before last week's Barbarian on accident, and I was 100% invested at that point. And overall, I don't really think this movie disappointed because I don't think it was worse than X. Now, I'll get into the X comparisons later in this video, but I want to start off by talking about the acting. Mia Goth gives a phenomenal performance here. I would say Oscar worthy. Overall, I will say the movie isn't good enough that it will get an Oscar nomination in my opinion. It's not top tier like Everything Everywhere All at Once, where Michelle Yeoh had an absolutely phenomenal performance. I really don't see many other performances from now till the end of the year that could probably beat out Mia Goth, so I could see her getting nominated for Best Actress. There's this really great 6-minute monologue near the end of the movie, and it's absolutely insane. One of my biggest critiques with this movie, which I'll get into later in this video, is that we already know the descent that Pearl gets into. We already know what her character ends up as in X. So that does limit us in terms of character development because we really all obviously know where she is headed, and that kind of takes away a little bit of the intrigue, but Mia Goth's acting brings us back into this character. At least it did for me. Also, Tandy or Tondi, right? I don't know how to pronounce it, but she plays Pearl's mom, Ruth, and there's one huge argument scene, which is one of my favorite movie argument scenes of this year. Across the board, this movie had great performances, and I think that a lot of people are going to elevate this movie above X and a lot of other current horror movies because of their performances. Even in X, I thought the performances by Mia Goth were phenomenal. And again, this movie, she takes it to a whole other level, as this is a more of a character study, which I'll touch on later in this video, because that wasn't really something that I was expecting. Now, the thing that blew me away the most about this movie was the technical aspects. Overall, this is just a well-made movie, and the cinematography is on par, if not better than what X gave us. And I think what really separates this movie from not only, again, X, but a bunch of other modern horror movies is just the taste of it, the way that it looks. When I saw that first trailer in theaters last week, the color grading absolutely blew me away, and the entire movie is like that. The entire movie is so well colored, it's so poppy, and I think it all works so well. Just the aesthetic, and again, this does go into more of the costume and set design than really the technical aspects, but again, it all comes together to make this great environment. This movie is set in 1918, if I'm not mistaken, and you really get that vibe, the sets, the costumes, all of the production all around, and the cinematography aids in all of this. I think all around it really encapsulates us and brings us into the story a lot more. The score is also another thing I want to mention. I definitely felt like it was a little bit over the top at times, and my theater did have a lot of laughing at the movie moments, and that's where I kind of get into the writing, because I don't really think it's bad writing, but I don't really know what the theater was vibing towards in the movie, I guess. It felt like a lot of times when we were laughing more at the movie and not as much with the movie. And I think that's a very interesting situation because, again, the writing wasn't bad to me, but it was basic, and it definitely had a lot of tropes. For example, in that big monologue that Mia Goth has to perform, I thought it was really great, but then towards the end, it started to get very, I guess, satirical. I felt like they were 100% going into these horror tropes with the camera movement and just focusing on certain elements of the room that they were in. It felt very basic, tropey to me, but my theater was laughing at it, so I don't really know if it was intentional or not. But what's unique about this is, since X was a slasher movie, that's kind of what I was expecting going into it, but as it went on, I realized this is more of a character study, and I really dug it, especially towards the back half of this movie. I really liked it. But with that being said, the first half was honestly kind of boring. It was a lot of setup for a character that we already basically knew, and it wasn't anything that mind-blowing. The technical aspects, of course, they were still there. The great setup, the great production and set design, all of that was still there, but again, it's nothing that by itself can blow me away. In the second half of the movie, the story got to a point, the moments that kind of were built up from the first half of this movie, they all came together and snowballed into this great finale. And I think what really saves this movie from the basic writing, and again, not bad, but just basic writing, is the directing by Ty West. I think story and writing wise, it's again not bad, but I think the direction by Ty West really elevates it all. Again, super basic script, but I feel like the vision behind the script makes it actually work. I don't know if every director could tackle this because again, Ty West did write this movie as well. So of course she had a special vision for it, and I think that's what made the second half of this movie so good. With that, we also have to talk about the gore because the second half is kind of where it builds up. And again, it's not like X. It definitely isn't a slasher movie where you have all of that type of gore, but it slowly gets more and more gory throughout this movie. And there's this one little sequence where you kind of get a bunch of different kills and a bunch of different recap kills happening. And I think it works very well. It's definitely the most gory part of this movie. I'm not going to say why they choose to make it more and more gory overall, because I think it works for the story and for this character that we're seeing evolve over time. But I think the use of gore in this movie was very well done. It wasn't over the top all the time. Again, definitely over the top, but not when it wasn't needed. Before I give my final thoughts on my score, I did want to say that I did give X a 7 out of 10. And as a prequel to X, Pearl serves its purpose, but story-wise, it doesn't seem to bring anything new to the table. On the other hand, visually and technically, it is miles better than X in my opinion, which ends up balancing the two out. Overall, I'm going to give Pearl a 7 out of 10 as well. I think X and Pearl are basically on par with one another. Now, it was just revealed that they're doing a third movie in Ty West's trilogy of the X movies. It's going to be called Maxine, and so I'm very excited for that one because that takes place after X, and if we combine the technical elements of both of these movies as well as the story elements and characters from both of these movies, I think that Maxine could end up being the best of the trilogy. But again, if you've seen or want to check out Pearl, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.